It's Franz Wagner's turn. He is almost back today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is January 14th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, Franz Wagner enters the critical final stage of his recovery. He is now in the return to conditioning protocols. We'll talk about Franz Wagner's big step and why the Magic may not need the offensive boost you think. We'll talk a little trade deadline stuff coming up here in just a moment. But first, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic daily newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. We arrived at the Advent Health Training Center on Tuesday to some surprising but very, very welcome news. Just like Paolo Banchero 2 weeks ago was upgraded from out, torn right oblique, to out, return to competition conditioning, Franz Wagner has now entered this critical return to competition conditioning stage. As he told us after practice on Tuesday, the muscle is healed, and now it's just about ramping things up. It's just about kind of pushing himself a little bit further and getting back into the flow of play. By all accounts, and this is really coming from a Mo Wagner podcast that's in German, so thanks to those who've been able to translate for me, Franz Wagner's tear was not as serious as Paolo Banchero's, where it took Paolo Banchero 8 weeks to get to this stage. It's taken Franz Wagner only 5. Difference of 3 weeks. Pretty big deal. If they follow the same pattern, however, Franz Wagner is probably not coming back for another 2 weeks. So this is a big step. This is an important step, but there's still work to do. The nature of this injury, torn oblique, it's like kind of a core muscle. It's like the side of your stomach. The nature of this injury is that you really can't do anything in the immediate aftermath of it. And so while it is tempting to say, oh, Franz needed 3 less weeks, he doesn't need as much time to ramp up. No. He probably literally spent 2 weeks doing nothing active or nothing seriously strenuous. And what he can do now, what this opens the door for, is that he can now work harder. He can now do more regular basketball activities. He can start maybe taking some bumps, start taking some contact. But again, let's preach patience. Franz is not doing one-on-one yet. He is not playing where he's getting bumped. He's not playing 5-on-5 yet. There are still steps to go in this process. But the other part is it's not going to be that long. The Magic aren't going to put a timeline on things, so take all this with a grain of salt. It is very possible that we see Franz Wagner. I would circle January 25th against Detroit. Home game against the Pistons. I would circle that as the day that Franz could potentially return. If not that day, January 27th in Miami. If not that day, almost certainly for the Magic's West Coast trip that begins January 30th in Portland. At the end of the day, this is about Franz getting healthy and getting to a place where he can play without concern. Obviously, like Paolo Banchero is on a minute restriction still. He's been back for 2 games. It's still a little bit of a ramp-up period, even after you play. Look, these guys are in the best shape in the world. Like, these guys are in incredible condition, but game conditioning is different than anything else. So it does take patience. But let's remind you how good Franz Wagner is. Franz Wagner was having a career season, 24.4 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 5.7 assists per game, shooting 46.5% from the floor, of course, on a higher usage with Banchero out for all but 5 games that he played. Wagner was on track to be an all-star and potentially even a dark horse all-NBA player with this Magic team sitting in fourth in the Eastern Conference. Because of the injury, because he's missed significant time, 25 games, he's missed 16 games now. 16, yeah, I did my math correctly. I was told there would be no math. He's missed 16 games. It might be hard for him to get back onto the All-Star team, especially because the coaches are going to vote at around the time he's coming back. So that's his case. And obviously, you don't know what he looks like. And I'm sure the Magic would probably very much tell other coaches, like, hey, don't vote for our guys. We want them to have some time off. In which case they probably will, because they want, they want to make them tired and all that. Wagner will be an all-star in everything but name. And that's what the Magic have lost. The Magic lost their two all-star players and still found a way to compete and still found a way to be this really solid team. I'm going to give you some numbers here in a minute that just show you how good this Magic team is and why we shouldn't be as concerned. But this is the main point again. Franz Wagner is back practicing. The Magic had a light practice. He was doing non-contact stuff in practice. He is back kind of beginning to ramp up and beginning to scale up toward returning to play. And obviously the Magic need it at this point. We're going to talk injuries the rest of this podcast, the rest of this episode. But the Magic are down a lot of bodies right now. They had only 8 healthy players finish the game on Sunday. Goga Bitadze is questionable for Wednesday's game with a right hip contusion. He did not go through practice on Tuesday. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is questionable with a sore left knee. He did go through practice on Tuesday, practiced in full. I would expect, even though he's listed as questionable, I would expect that he's going to play Wednesday in Milwaukee. They have Jalen Suggs, who's currently out with a low back strain. He was back in the facility. We saw him on the wall stretching after practice on Tuesday, but he did not go through practice on Tuesday either. Jet Howard is doubtful with a left ankle sprain. He went through treatment. He's slowly making his way back. Gary Harris is still out, but he went through the non-contact portions of practice, continues to build conditioning. The Magic are, and I'm sure Paolo Banchero played 26 and a half minutes in Friday's game against Milwaukee, played 27 in the win over the Sixers on Sunday. He's still slowly ramping up his minutes. Would not surprise me if the Magic try and sneak him to 28 and just slowly progress him back up. The Magic will be very happy to have Franz Wagner back whenever he comes back. It may be a while, though. I want to caution about that. It's not going to be something that happens immediately. It's not something that's going to happen like a snap of the fingers. It's not tomorrow. It's still weeks away. But this is the point, as always. There is light at the end of the tunnel. The Magic will be whole again, and the Magic will get to see what their roster looks like at full strength. Because that's the next step. We talked about this on yesterday's podcast about how the rest of the season for the Magic is about kind of beginning to prove and show their path to contention. That obviously involves the trade deadline, which will come up February 6th, which is just 3 weeks away now. So let's ask this ultimate question. How much of a boost do the Magic need offensively? It's honestly not as much as you think. I'm going to explain that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. I just don't have the time between work, life, trying to eat healthier, keep my New Year's resolution. I'm constantly feeling stressed out about when am I going to go to the grocery store and making sure I get the right things. Sometimes I go to the grocery store, I buy things I don't need, especially candy, and then end up with no time to actually cook, especially with the busy Magic schedule. I always am concerned, am I going to actually eat all this food that I buy? And sticking to my health goals, well, the grocery store is definitely not a help there either. But everything changed when I discovered Hungry Root. Honestly, it's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. They take care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on your tastes and health goals. From anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great. All delivered straight to your door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. I'm going to hit you with some numbers here, so stand by with me. But look, we all know the Magic's biggest weakness. We all know what the Magic struggle with. We all know what they have to solve and what's ultimately keeping them from being considered in the same class as the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks, and the Boston Celtics, kind of the three teams that have separated themselves at the top of the East. The Magic have one of the best defenses in the league. And I don't think the Magic are in any mood to sacrifice that in any way. That's going to be a guiding principle for this team. If you can't defend, if you're not going to commit to this team defensively, the Magic don't want you. You can be an okay defender, but you got to commit defensively. But ultimately, the Magic have one of the worst offenses in the league. There's no getting around it. There's no sugarcoating it, although I'm going to here in a minute. The Magic ranked 27th in the league in offensive rating. They score 108.5 points per 100 possessions. They have not ranked outside the bottom 10 in the league in offensive rating since Dwight Howard's last year. More than this, they are last in the league in three-point field goal percentage at 30.8%. Without improvement, this would be the worst three-point field goal percentage in the league in more than a decade. The Magic's offense this year has been bad. And if your instinct is to say, if the Magic want to be serious and compete this year or any year moving forward, it starts with adding offensive players, which I will continue to say, well, look, the Magic went out and got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It's not their fault. A career 38% three-point shooter is suddenly shooting 32% from three. I will note also KCP Kenny is starting to turn around. KCP is starting to kind of find himself a little bit. Starting to find himself a little bit in 2025, just since January 1st. He's shooting 48.3% from three on 4.8 attempts per game. In his last 15 games, he's up to 35.2%. So some signs of life from Kenny. Ultimately, I will continue to argue this, ultimately the Magic's path to a championship lies with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Of course, the offense is cratered with Paolo and Franz out. And then on top of that, Jalen Suggs out. Of course it's cratered. Because here's the thing you may not realize. Paolo and Franz are the biggest impactors on this offense. Let me explain. Time to throw some numbers at you. I am preparing to argue the Magic's offense is not as bad as you think it is. Go ahead, write the comments. I'm going to preview on this. So I'm going to at least present some evidence on this, and then we'll bring it all back. With Paolo Banchero on the floor this season, again, small sample, only 7 games. I'm going to grant you that. The Magic have a 115.8 offensive rating. Paolo was plus 18 in the game against the Sixers. He was plus 6 in a game the Magic lost by 3. Paolo Banchero is what a superstar is. He is a self-sustaining offense. Again, when Paolo Banchero is on the floor, the Magic have a 115.8 offensive rating. That would be 6th in the league. When Franz Wagner is on the floor, regardless of whether Paolo is on the floor or not, when Franz Wagner is on the floor, the Magic have a 113.2 offensive rating. That would rank 12th in the league. So as long as one of them is on the floor, the Magic actually have a competent offense, at least by the numbers this year. And in fact, in the short 109 minutes that Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner shared the floor this season, the Magic have a 114.2 offensive rating. that would rank 9th. Through the first 5 games of the season, obviously, the Magic ranked 15th in the league in offensive rating. If you take out the 4-game losing streak and the kind of the aftermath and the shock of losing Paolo Banchero, in the time between that game, the end of that losing streak, and Franz Wagner's injury, the Magic had a 114.2 offensive rating. That would rank 9th in the league today. Or sorry, they had a 112.9 offensive rating until Franz Wagner's injury. That was 15th in the league. So when Paolo and Franz are on the floor, the Magic have essentially the 9th best offense in the league. But it was just Franz shortly after that injury. Before his injury, the Magic were 15th. This is my argument. The Magic's offensive situation is not as dire as you think. There is a good offense in there. It involves, yes, making shots, but the Magic have 2 gravity-bending stars. They have 2 players who can demand the defense's attention. And that is enough to give them some offensive room. That is enough to give them a chance. And with how good their defense is, the Magic don't need the best offense in the league. They just need a functioning offense. I have described it this way. Since Paolo Banchero's return, it's been like a light switch has been turned on. You can feel the space, you can feel the comfort, even as Paolo was still finding his way and figuring things out. The Magic offense looks functional. And then he goes out of the game, and it's like the switch turns off. It's no offense to the guys that are playing. They're trying. Cole Anthony's had his moments. AD Black's had his moments. A lot of guys have had their moments. But Paolo is an offensive hub. So, what does this mean for the trade deadline? What does this mean for how the Magic should assess things? I am still very much of the belief that, the Magic will have to do something. They can't just rest on their laurels. They can't just sit there and say, oh, we're fine, or continuity and togetherness and family and all that stuff. That's gotten them pretty far. I don't think the Magic are going to make drastic moves. They're not, they're going to maybe tweak things one at a time. It's not going to be like wholesale changes or like 2-3 starters going out. No, it's going to be little pieces and little things on the edge. It might be trading Cole Anthony in the summer. It might be trading Wendell Carter in the summer, but it's not going to be like wholesale changes. We're not going to wake up suddenly and the roster is going to be completely different. The Magic are betting on continuity. That bet's not going to change. So, but I do think the Magic need to do something. Their offense still has a hurdle to get over. And that is something the Magic probably need to acquire from outside of their organization. To me, though, that does not necessarily mean it has to happen this year. I still think the Magic need to see Paolo and Franz playing together and see if what we saw earlier in the season is true. And unfortunately, the trade deadline is going to come up before the Magic can really figure this out. So there are a few players that I have my eye on, because I do think that this also reveals another key weakness. Jalen Suggs hasn't quite figured out how to be that third guy. He's gotten the opportunity. He's had his moments, and obviously now he's hurt. But I think there's something to say that, Jalen Suggs isn't included in all this. That, when some of the Magic first offensive lineups come with Jalen Suggs on the floor. There's something to that. And so getting another more natural scorer, getting another more natural shooter, another versatile shooter, not just a spot-up shooter, but a versatile shooter, is something I think the Magic should pursue, whether it's at this year's trade deadline or in the offseason. Magic fans, and I was listening to an episode of Locked On Jazz from a few weeks ago. David Locke pitched this. Colin Sexton is still my favorite. If the Magic are going to make a trade, Colin Sexton's my favorite target. I think he would fit this team's culture. I think that he would give this team another offensive attacker, a little bit more scoring punch, a point guard who's not a point guard like the Magic like, but more naturally can play some point guard, can hit spot up threes. Like, he's been really impressive this year. In fact, entering tonight's games, Colin Sexton is having this really strong season in all the ways the Magic like. Sexton is averaging 18.2 points per game, shooting 42% from three, career 38.8% three-point shooter. He is shooting 49% on spot-up opportunities and 1.21 points per possession, according to NBA's tracking stats. That would rank second on the Magic in points per possession and lead them in percentage. Colin Sexton would make this team better. And the kind of good news is there is a framework where it only costs them Cole Anthony, Gary Harrison, a pick, which I think the Magic would probably be willing to part with at least one of their two picks. They're going to both be in the 20s. Whether that's the path the Magic go down or not, I don't know. My gut tells me the Magic want to see their roster at full strength and give that a chance before they make any big decisions. My gut also tells me what we're going to talk about next. This team has pulled together too hard. They've been asking their bench players to do too much. They're going to give them the chance to see this thing through. They have, honestly, like, the bench group, this team, this whole roster has earned the opportunity, in my opinion, to see this thing all the way through, to see how far this group can take it. Because every player on this roster has had a hand in putting the Magic in this position and giving the Magic this opportunity to compete for all of their goals despite their injuries. We're 3 weeks out. Anything can happen. I am very skeptical the Magic make a deal at the deadline. If the Magic do anything, it's probably to clear a roster spot so they can sign Trevelyan Queen to a full contract. That would be the only thing I would expect the Magic to do before the deadline. I honestly, it's a small thing. We'll point it out when it happens. I don't know what that deal looks like. But I do think that is something the Magic want to accomplish. And if I were the Magic, that's what I would want to accomplish. That would be my big goal at the deadline is let me get Trevelyan Queen on a full contract. Let me reward him for that. But there it is. Do the Magic need an offensive boost? The answer is yes. Absolutely. But the biggest boost they will get is being healthy. The numbers back that up. And I think this team has deserved the chance to see what they look like when they're healthy. And that again leads us back to this. The success for this team, the success for this Magic team is based on one thing. Next man up. We'll talk about the Magic bringing that next man up coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there is nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine and start the new year off right. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need all within your budget. I am looking at my couch right now. It's over there if you're watching on my YouTube stream. And it definitely looks like it needs a little love. It definitely looks like it either needs a little love or needs a replacement. It's getting a little worn out. I can see the cushion fraying. I can see the dent of where I sit. It might be time. Well, Wayfair has a huge selection and makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. My favorite part is the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. Wayfair's site is so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed in no time. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So as we get closer to the trade deadline, then, I previewed this. I've talked about this a few times. The Magic are really trying to thread a very, very fine needle. They are a young team trying to grow, trying to get better. But they are also a contending team trying to contend. They need certainty, but they're young, and young players do not provide certainty. Young players need room to make mistakes and learn and get better. And it's honestly a testament to how good this team can be that they've been able to do all this and be injured and make these kinds of mistakes and learn from them. The Magic have had the greatest sports cliche of all. Next man up. Everyone says it, next man up mentality. We are enough. Whatever cliche the Magic use that you want to describe this team, that's what they're doing. That's how they've delivered. That's who they are. And as I mentioned in the previous segment, I think we have to give this team and this roster the space and respect to deliver on that. Because it would be one thing if this team were not winning. And look, they're about 500 since Jalen Suggs' injury. I'm not going to pretend that they're like killing the world or that they're exactly where they need to be. They're holding the boat steady. But at every turn, at every example, this team has delivered. This team has stepped up. It has been the next man up. And to me, that is the biggest statement. The Magic have stepped up in every way, doing everything they need to do. It has been a process for sure. It has. But the coaches have kept everyone ready. They have imbued confidence in every player to perform their role, whatever it may be from game to game. And it could be different from game to game. And this is, again, a culture that is deeply embedded in this team. Everybody believes in everybody. And that is empowering to everybody. That is empowering to each player. And I think we sometimes do take for granted that they've earned this too. And our desire for change and to like use the trade machine, we do forget these are humans and that these are people and that these are players who are doing their best. And in this case, these are players that are doing their best and largely succeeded. And I'm not going to sit here, look, the Magic still need to add to get to the next level. Bigger picture, this is not the Magic. This is most likely not the Magic's championship team. Maybe it is. Maybe they're going to surprise us all this year. Crazier things have happened. This is most likely not the championship team. And so the Magic will have to make difficult personnel decisions. But how this season has been built and what they've done this season, I find it really hard to believe that the Magic aren't going to put their faith and their trust in these players and in this team. The Magic have lived this cliche, next man up. So many players have stepped up when called upon, when needed, and delivered in a big way. And again, that is a credit to each individual player. That is a credit to the coaching staff. That is a credit to their coach. That is a credit to the front office for finding dudes who believe like this, who buy in like this. This is who the Magic are. And we will see, what the Magic can deliver moving forward. This is a team that has been wildly successful this year. Let's make that clear too. They've been wildly successful. And everyone on this roster deserves a lot of credit for it. There are areas they need to improve. Not pretending otherwise. But they have lived that next man up mentality, and that's not going to go away, and that's going to be valuable for them down the road. And it's a key reason why the Magic probably shouldn't break things up this year. Because that belief is hard to recreate. It is hard to find. And the Magic have it in boatloads. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. on Blue Sky at Philip R. You can subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of me selling podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. As if all that's not enough, you can now find us in newsletter form at the Locked On Magic Daily newsletter. It's the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we will break down that gargantuan mammoth showdown with the Milwaukee Bucks. Can the Magic get a big win over their likely playoff opponent? Sorry, Indiana. We'll talk about that game tomorrow, but until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.